What is up, my fellow Monarch Monstars? It is good to see you guys once again. We're going to be talking about episode 9 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, Axis Mundi. Man, was this a pretty insane episode. If you guys watched our watch party and tuned into that, you know we were going crazy. A lot of major theories that we had discussed early on in the season that happened to come true. Kind of insane. But there was also, I read like in the comments, someone was talking about how it was a very science fiction-y episode. And that's true. And there was so much depth to this one. And I've seen some comments in our watch party of, people who are complaining, well, they didn't explain this and they didn't do that. They didn't do this. And I'm confused by it all. And the truth is they did explain most of it. I would say like 98% of it they explained. There's one little continuity issue I did find in this episode that maybe will be explained, but we're going to be breaking this down in depth for you guys so you know what to do already. Let's go through all the pleasantries. Follow us on one of our social media pages, guys, like TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Threads if you're on there at _Bat Channel. And if you're on Facebook, check us out at Holy Bat Channel. Instagram has been a lot of fun. When you follow us there, we do a lot of fun little quizzes, like questionnaire stuff. It's a great way to get to know us and to chat with us beyond the night, to my boy beyond the night out there. It's a great way to get to know us and find out what's going on in our lives. That's not just YouTube, but also to share your ideas and thoughts about maybe what you want our show to discuss next. So make sure you guys do that. And also what helps out our channel so much is when you guys smash that like, you share this video, you subscribe if you haven't already, join the battalion, and guys, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. And here we go, guys. Let's go ahead and bring out the best co-host I could ever ask for, Super Bro Corey. How's it going, big fella?
Hey, buddy. How we doing today, man?
I'm doing good, dude. I'm very excited to talk about this episode. You and I, and really the whole Monarch Monstars panel, did an incredible job of really hitting some major theories.
Oh, yeah. We called a lot of different things, Operation Hourglass, going into Hollow Earth, by Josh mentioning that as well. We had, Keiko still being alive, there's so many different things that we kind of hit, which is pretty wild, pretty exciting, Trey. I've enjoyed kind of going through all these different conspiracy theories with you and different things like that. And it's been, we put our tinfoil caps on big time in this show, and we got a lot of those tinfoil cap theories confirmed.
Man, yes, we did. And guys, I must say, today I'm a little tired just from the simple fact that I got up super early so I could work on this particular show because I did a lot of research. I was like my own one-man team digging in, going into the science. That Charlie Day picture where he's looking at the board and there's lines all over the place? That was me this morning, which is why our show started much later, because I was doing all this research and there was little time to have it ready for the normal time that we do our shows. But thank you guys all for being here. Corey, who's all in the chat today?
Dude, we got a lot of people here today. We got Atomic Kaiji 1954, Akil Lee. He says hello, everyone. We have Dean Classified, Monarch Eyes Only, Bat Fanatic, Red Robin, Wayne Enterprises, Kaiju, Crazy Craig Rollinson. So many theories you guys called, confirmed.
We did.
King Donkey Kong says it really was impressive. TJ has a theory that we look forward to hearing in a little bit. Oracle's Clock Tower.
TJ has had some good theories too. He's nailed a few
as well. Red Hooded Outlaw in the chat. We got Beyond the Night, The Butler, The Batman Who Laughs, Joker's Wild, Carrie Kelly, 9 Lives in Hell here, Boy Trevor H. We got people filing in as we speak, Trey. Tinfoil caps on, woo, and going deep in the Hollow Earth theory.
Yeah, well, it's good. Great to see you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today, Corey. I think feel disturbance in the Hollow Earth. We're picking up some gamma ray radiation.
We absolutely are.
It's time to bring in the monster himself. Our boy Josh. How's it going, big fella?
Hey,
What's
Josh.
on, Monarch Monster?
There we go.
How you been, brother?
Good. I was a little late to the watch party. I apologize for episode 9, but just like you guys, that ending, I watched it 2 hours after. I was like, oh! And congrats to all of us, everyone, because we've all been predicting something right. I think that shows that we are fans of the MONSTERVERSE. So,
right,
I agree.
I mean, and it was so cool, like, because all of us, and the best part is we all kind of like had like doubts about some of each other's like theories, like, nah, I don't, that sounds crazy. Corey's like, dude, that's nuts, but I like, it's a cool theory, but that's crazy, you know, like, and I love that in some weird way we were kind of mimicking what was going on with like Hiroshi and Bill Randa. Everyone thinks he's crazy, and then somehow we come out right. You know, so congrats to all my fellow Bill Randas here in the chat with the tinfoil hat on. Oh man, it's so crazy. Josh, talk about real quick your theory that you got right, because I know you weren't able to join us for the watch party, but you were able to at least check into the chat. But I want everyone to know that Josh, our man, was right all along.
Well, I remember vividly when we talked about, with shout out to Orc and Beans, we did episode 1 and 2 together, and I was recalling watching the episode. I was like, oh, I was right, you know. And we kind of throughout the season have seen you know, hints, or we could imagine that we are in 2015, so we know chronologically, you know, we should get connections to King of the Monsters, like you've been saying, Trey. But I kind of was like, well, there is in 2024, knowing the release schedule, a movie coming out in April, I believe, Godzilla Kong, New Empire. And so in my head, back then when episode 1 and 2 was happening, I kind of said some things where I was like, yeah, I think it's going to connect somehow to a movie. This show is going to connect to something, and I think we're going to have more like Godzilla Kong lore. And also, of course, as a person I am, I come from a psychology background. I kind of see things that some people don't sometimes with human behavior. And I know it's not a big something that's this community is probably a fan of, but I did kind of call the mirroring of the love triangle.
Yeah, you did, but you know, you in a way, because you called that, and when you were talking about that specifically, Josh, of what that meant in the mirroring, I think it eased the blow a little bit, because some of us were kind of like, yeah, it's messed up. I still don't like that Kate is doing it, but you are completely right, because I think you were the first one who kind of said that the Monarch legacy of monsters isn't monsters just as in titans and kaijus, but it's the people themselves. And we've seen Hiroshi kind of be the monster. We've seen, in some cases, Shaw be the monster, and Kate, and even May. So it's like you were able to see the reflection of the legacy cast with the post G-Day crew that I think it's helping me. And I think others in the community kind of go like, okay, there is a bit of story motivation here going on, even though it's still like, you know, at personally level, like it's kind of messed up. She did it in front of her brother, but we'll see where it goes, you know, with it, because it's crazy how this particular episode ends, man. It was insane, nuts.
I agree. And seeing I'm sure we're going to get into it, but seeing Hiroshi, and seeing how he treats Shaw and how his trauma, a consistent theme, right, Trey? You've talked about how each character has trauma, right? And it's always something that I keep in mind is like sometimes hurt people inadvertently hurt people. So even though they're not like meaning to, sometimes people think in a way like, hey, I'm rationalizing to make myself feel better and at the expense of anybody else. So I think that Kate and her dad are alike in a lot of ways, you know, and so it's just understanding humans. And like I said, like I hinted to you in a group chat, you and Corey, like,
yeah,
this is more than just kaiju monsters.
Yeah.
Of every type of monster. So
yeah, which is it's just so cool. Just once again, kind of the genius in the writing, where some people are going to look at it as a blanket statement rather than looking through the Hollow Earth portals, the deep core of what they're trying to go for. And I thought that was really brilliant.
Well, the other interesting thing to kind of add on to what Josh said is there's a lot of people commenting out there, especially after seeing episode 9, that this is the most they've ever been vested in the human cast, the human characters of a Monarch Godzilla type show movie, where typically people just care about the monsters and seeing Godzilla wreak havoc, and this show is helping people really like the human characters and aspect of it as well, which has been really neat to see as well.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I love what the butler says here. He says, really of the MONSTERVERSE, best character story, and I agree with that. And partly it helps when you have a TV show. You have 10 episodes to really dive in deep with your character. Essentially, you get 3 or 4 movies out of these characters, rather than a lot of these guys only got 1 movie. So it helps, but they're really showing you multiple different sides of, like Josh said, tragedy, trauma. How do we deal with that type of trauma, and how do we move forward from it? And just different character arcs. Not everyone is going to be the hero of the story, right? It's not going to be the standard hero arc, the hero's journey that we're used to, because they're looking at it more from a sense of realism of how would some people react. And while we want that hero character, we want that person that we can root for, really the one you root for anyways is Godzilla. You root for our boy, the Titan, to get the job done, to protect us. So he's the hero of the story, but the humans are just as much as a monster as the Titans are. In a way, the Titans are some of them are trying to keep and contain balance, and it's, as we've kind of learned throughout, and just with Toho films, it's kind of the humans that kind of throw off the balance often, that creates the problems that shakes up all the Titans. So it's a very cool way of storytelling that I'm really, really excited to break down this episode 9 Axis Mundi with you guys. Are you ready to get into it, fellas?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, buddy.
To your point, I was wondering why I would like this show so much. And I think, honestly, like you're saying, just like a particular director subverts expectations, this show really is subverting expectations of what I thought it was going to be. And
and I think that's what's great, is I feel like for the most part, the MONSTERVERSE, which great t-shirt, by the way, the MONSTERVERSE has been it's entertaining, right? It's just at blanket value, it's face value, it's very entertaining. But in terms of deconstructing the kaiju monster genre, we haven't really gotten that. It's been what you have expected, right? Monsters destroying the city, and how do humans deal with that in the city. This show has been a bit of a deconstruction of the kaiju Titan monster B-movie genre, which is really, really cool to kind of get that different side of it. Whether you like it or not, it's different. And I appreciate that as someone trying to throw in their own stamp of creating a new adventure in the MONSTERVERSE. So I dig it immensely. What is TJ saying? I don't want it to end. I think we're going to get a season 2, buddy. I don't think this show is doing too well not to get a season 2, I think. When I drop my Keiko Godzilla connection, y'all are going to lose it. Trust me. Ooh, snap. Uh-oh. TJ, you're already getting me excited. Yeah. I can't wait to hear that. Well, guys, let's go ahead and get into episode 9, Axis Mundi, which let's talk about this real quick. Axis Mundi, in case if you guys didn't know, is the Latin term for sacred space, essentially. It's the axis of Earth between celestial poles. It can be spiritual in a sense, the difference between the way we can pass from the earthly realm into the spiritual realm, the cosmic center, kind of what a lot of you who like Norse mythology, like the world tree, which Corey, you're a big world tree fan. You love Norse mythology. You love all that kind of cool stuff. What does that mean to you when we started to hear what this episode was going to obviously Axis Mundi, we're kind of thinking Hollow Earth, but do you think there's a deeper meaning behind it at all?
I would say so. This show has been nothing but deeper meanings the entire time. So I think there is going to be some additional things. Like the biggest thing that just right on the sheet is this connection between heaven and earth. These god-like Mutos, Titans, and us on Earth as well. So like, there's like so many different things you could take it. Like just the roots of the tree, going into Earth, and like the tunnels that these kaijus travel through and everything like that. I think there is a bigger picture meaning to it.
Okay, Josh, what about you?
Yeah, like I one thing I have loved about this show is just the consistency and in my opinion, the episode titles have always kind of had like a dual meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And you showing this, thank you for all this research that you've done, Trey.
Appreciate it. Thank you. It took hours.
It's kind of like really blowing my mind as somebody who studied like world religions and stuff like that, like I'm wondering, why do we do the things we do? We bury people. And so in a way, what you're seeing there is like, oh, okay. I'm kind of like having a lot of flooding thoughts in my mind. So yeah, I definitely agree with what Corey said.
Yeah. And I think what's cool about it is we talked about earlier the Monarch symbol and what that has meant. We talked about how it being an hourglass if you turn it. I think that was TJ's theory that is becoming true more and more. But we also talked about the original design that Gareth Edwards did, where he said it was the collision of mythology and science. And in a way, Axis Mundi is just that. This is the mythology that's now having scientific grounding to it, some realism where it's a part of our world, and there's a bit of this crazy, you could just simply say science to it, that I think caught a lot of people off guard, and it is confusing. I won't lie. Just watching, I know if you pulled apart some movies like Interstellar, any film that really has dealt with kind of gravity and time, but also kind of the center of the earth having a different world to it, it kind of, I wouldn't say it's a foreign idea, it's just kind of one of the unknown that doesn't quite make sense, but it's a cool imagination to it, which is part of the fun of this show, for sure. But Corey, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So Axis Mundi is the theme of this show, right? We know they're going to really focus on the Hollow Earth. And I agree with TJ here. TJ is saying, I feel we are misusing the term Hollow Earth. It should actually be parallel Earths. You are true by that. And that's where I say that's where a lot of people are getting confused by, is that yes, it kind of is Hollow Earth, kind of. But what it is, the Hollow Earth portals that they were calling them in the show are really dimensions to another world that could be within Earth or not, in a way. It's one of those, like, I don't know if we'll ever fully understand where they're going with it, but I kind of looked at it as there's these pocket realms that these Hollow Earth portals take us to that are otherworldly, in a sense.
Which would make even more sense to like the Norse mythology of that world tree, the Yggdrasil, where it basically, around it exists like everything, and that's including the 9 worlds around it as well. So like,
yeah, exactly, Corey, the 9 realms, right? It's really kind of bringing in that Norse mythology thing, myth and science, right? And bringing it to a collision, which is really, really dope. I get excited just thinking about it. I really went nerdy with my science mind today, so hopefully you guys are ready to dive in deep into Hollow Earth with us today.
Now
go ahead.
This is an interesting question before we jump too deep. Question: do you want the MONSTERVERSE to be connected to Pacific Rim stuff? Because I don't know, not want that, to be honest.
I watched I love Pacific Rim, and I know people have hoped that Pacific Rim is a part of the MonsterVerse. I don't see how it could. Just because of the time, like if they throw in, I mean, unless if they're saying there's I think once you get into that, you get into this weird multiverse thing, and I don't want to see the MonsterVerse do that. I think we have too much of that going on everywhere else that I want. The MonsterVerse has something cool going on right now. They have something that not really anyone else is doing, which is talking about the inner Earth, right? The hollow Earth, but it is different realms and different portals to dimensions that contain these different Titan species. And I don't like the idea of like throwing in, like, to me, when they do a Pacific Rim MonsterVerse crossover, that will tell me we're kind of at the end of the MonsterVerse. Like, this is their last cash grab to see if they can get any money out. And I think we already did the mecha versus the monsters. You know, we already did Mecha Godzilla versus Titans. To do humans now part of that, I like them separate. Keep them their own thing. I think they're cool that way. What's your guys' thoughts on that? I mean, have you seen Pacific Rim, Corey or Josh?
I have, yep. I love Pacific Rim. It's a super cool movie. I don't think they'll connect it, but if they did, it wouldn't bother me by any means. But yeah, I liked Pacific Rim a lot. So that it's funny, Trey. That was kind of like when you're like showing it to me, like, you know, it's such a cool concept, the mechas and everything like that, and the shared brain and everything like that. So I really dug that movie and kind of dived deep into it. I think it'd be cool, but I don't think it's needed by any means.
Okay, so you're open to the idea if it ever happens. Okay, how about you, Josh?
So to be honest, I own Pacific Rim, but I actually have never like watched it all the way through. I have seen the highlights because I did my first time visiting overseas. I went to a 3-story coffee shop, and on the 3rd story, this was in Amsterdam, they were showing Pacific Rim and 3D. So I got to put on glasses and see the climax in 3D. So I have kind of seen it, and it was amazing. But I didn't watch it all the way through, so I don't want to like judge, you know, what it is. But I just kind of agree with Trey. Like, this has been brought up before in other shows, and I do think that we're diving into a lot of lore connecting. To my knowledge, this is the Hollow Earth stuff is kind of new, right? For right. So I'm kind of getting like, you know, Hollywood is dealing with multiverse right now, and so I can see how that question would be naturally coming up.
Yeah,
kind of like, what if this could be like a Toho type multiverse where -1 is happening, you know, in theaters, and then we're having MonsterVerse. Like, I'm just kind of like, I think we have a lot on our plate right now. So I agree with Trey, kind of like, let's just deal with what we got in front of us right now before we get too greedy and want more seconds.
But that's an interesting point too, Josh. Like, how cool would it be if you know, God, you know all the different Godzilla terms, Trey, better than I, like eras, you know, if all the different eras were a part of the
like the Shara Heisei and Millennium eras, and
exactly, we're all part of the same realm.
So I feel like we can bring back.
I mean, yeah, in a way, it could all be part of the pocket realm dimensions of Toho. Like, if they wanted to do a multiversal MonsterVerse thing, like I said, once they do that, I think we're like, I want them to be as original as possible. Oh,
we may have to do a show on that, Trey.
That's an interesting thought. I don't know who wins that. Honestly, don't say
it. We're going to make a show on that.
We're making a show out of it. See, there you go, Corey, with the show ideas. That's why we keep them around. But really, really cool ideas, guys. Orchid Beans, what's up, dude? It's good to see you, bud. Hope you're doing well, guys. If you have not followed Orchid Beans on Twitch, he's starting a gaming stream again, Corey. So
yeah, he was on a little bit.
Give our boy a follow over on Twitch, Orchid Beans, my man. It's always good to see you. I miss you so much. I know you've been busy, but hopefully we can get you back on. Orc, be good to see you, brother. But to get back to Oh, let's see. What does Javon say? Godzilla vs. Kong already explained the creator was aware that the next MonsterVerse entry was near and didn't want to step on the toes of Wingard, so he basically created another hidden world, not Hollow Earth. They already have are you talking about the show creator? With doing Monarch Legacy of Monsters, he wanted to do something that was kind of separate from Adam Wingard. I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. The show version of the Hollow Earth doesn't align with the movies at all, but in interviews they explain the Axis is a layer above the Hollow Earth, which they should have explained in the show. Okay, so yeah, I think we brought up that theory last episode, didn't Corey? Where I was talking about how I don't think if the cast did survive the fall, that maybe they landed, I think I said, in a pocket cave, where this other layer that's not quite Hollow Earth, so they didn't have to deal with an intense gravity pull that would implode them. So it's possible that they're going that route, which I kind of get the sense they are, because when you do see Hollow Earth through Shaw's point of view and both the Legacy and the post G-Day crew, it doesn't quite look like the Hollow Earth that we've seen in Godzilla vs. Kong or in the trailers for Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. So interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, Javon. That's some great points that you're bringing around. But to get back to their Operation Hourglass, this big moment that we've been talking about, first off, I really loved the tone of this scene. It really did feel like, back in the 50s and the 60s, we considered space the final frontier for, the new adventure for mankind. And it was the race to space, the US versus the Russians. And you kind of got the same sense here. And I know it was kind of cheesy. It was kind of campy with the General Puckett kind of giving the speech. And he's like saying, like, they're going to be putting their flag on the moon, but we're going to be putting our flag in inner space. I loved that. I thought it was cool.
I loved it too.
Did you, Corey? Yeah. What was your guys' thoughts on just the tone of the scene? Because I know for some people it's like, this feels funny, like feels a little weird, kind of like out of place.
Oh no, I enjoyed it. I felt like Puckett is kind of like he was just so confident in his narration. He's like, oh, we got this, and that's just his role. In this operation, he has to kind of like, okay, everything's good, everything's fine, and then we see the aftermath and he's kind of like, whoa. So I was okay with it because I felt like Puckett was being consistent with how he's been shown. Seeing him and Shaw, kind of have that trust, I guess, when Shaw reveals that Godzilla's still alive. It's kind of him, like, in my opinion, just backing up the mission, the overall goal, so that, okay, this is what is happening. And yeah, I didn't think it was cheesy. What about you, Corey?
I loved it, man. Like, this was an awesome speech. I thought General Puckett did a fantastic job. Like, I think of like the race to space and the race to the moon and everything like that. We got the classic JFK speech where it's the not because it's easy, but because it's hard, quote from JFK. So it was cool to see it kind of mirror the inner space exploration and the unexplored space that really kind of is, in my opinion, and I'm a big space nerd. It kind of makes more sense to explore inner space because we have some giant titans and kaijus coming out of these different cracks and crevices. So it's like we need to figure out what's going on down there, what's happening, so we can, protect and make sure, future generations are safe. So I loved what he said. I love that a major theory was confirmed in his speech and conversation talking about it, which I'm happy to have claimed that one. So that was a lot of fun, because we were all confused. We're like, wait, how the heck did they get through?
That was crazy. I will say, Corey, when you came up with that theory during, what was it, episode 8 watch party, I think is when you said it. when you're like, well, maybe if it's the safety of the Titans falling down with them. And I was like, but how does that make sense? And I have expanded on that since you said it, and you were confirmed correct in episode 9. So that was kudos to you on that one, good sir.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing that, like I was thinking about with it is like, Monarch and everybody is so like, we've kind of lost the ability to, try things, to actually do science stuff, because we get caught in these ways of just the norm. And this is what happened once, and that we're not going to test it again. I'm like, how can we confirm that's a fact? Science off of averages, not science off of one try. Yeah, one dude went in there. That doesn't mean that's what happens every single time you go through there. So it's like, there has to be a way with, traveling through with kaijus maybe, and passing through that portal keeps kind of like a gravitational safe pull or something along those lines that, makes it possible.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
I love what Red Hood Outlaw did here.
It felt so patriotic, so I was down. Yeah, it definitely did. They were definitely trying to make it feel like one small step for man, that's one small step for mankind, or one giant leap for mankind. Super Bro was right on that. And I think, like Josh kind of brought up earlier, it was very cool to see that from episode 8 when they were on the, our legacy trio was on the verge of losing Monarch when, Shaw brought out the ace in his card, revealing that Godzilla was alive. You really see that Puckett did, as Butler mentioned, became Team Monarch. I think it was Butler who said that.
Yes.
But, came Team Monarch, and he was very proud of this. He was, this is our adventure. This is going to be our greatest triumph, other than the space race that's going on right now. And I also loved the... you could tell there was the tension in this scene. While it was very hopeful and exciting of the approaching the unknown of the inner Earth, Hollow Earth, you also had this moment with Hiroshi and Shaw and Randa, who, after losing Keiko, those two really picked up the pieces. They raised that kid. And you can tell, Randa is maybe having a hard time raising Hiroshi. He kind of is not really listening, and he's kind of the stern one. He's the stern father figure, right? And then you got the cool Uncle Shaw, who he really gets along with and kind of has a connection with on a very powerful level, and giving him that knife, saying like, hey, I know you're worried, but this is part of the deal. We're trying to make people safe. Hold on to this knife for me. I'll get it back from you. It's a promise. And I really want people to remember that, because it's going to explain, we talked about trauma and how people deal with that trauma, and not everyone deals with it in the best way. We're starting to see with Hiroshi, he lost his real dad. He lost his mom. He's now about to lose Shaw. And then eventually, as we know, what happens to Bill Rand on Skull Island. So this is a man who people keep making promises to him, and he keeps losing them, which explains why he has a bit of hatred towards this situation, and explains kind of his scene with Shaw a little later, but we'll get to that. But we get to... Sorry, go ahead.
Just before we skip on to, I have to say, I loved when they're walking to the capsule, and Shaw looked over at General Puckett, and General Puckett, everybody else is clapping. General Puckett just looks at him, and he kind of gives them the nod. Like you said, Trey, General Puckett is full on Monarch, but it also to me was Shaw and Team 1 as well too. Like, they look at where they came from, from decent amount of funding to like this big huge heading to the moon type exploration mission, and it was just cool to me to see kind of the first approval of like General Puckett still cool, is now okay with Shaw, still going on the mission himself as well. It felt very like full circle to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And to see, and I also loved that Randa, you see kind of the growth throughout the entire show, right? Like, Shaw always kind of didn't care for Bill. He always didn't trust him. And then at this moment for Operation Hourglass, when they're getting ready to to explore the new world, you realize that there's a great amount of respect for each other, that they've really bonded in the loss of Keiko. So that was touching, but it also explains more and more why Bill Randa ends up the way he does in 1972 or 3, I think it is, with Kong Skull Island. And everything is kind of explained through how they've dealt with time, as it has passed, the people they've cared for and lost all in that time, and how it has changed them. And we'll definitely go into that more with Bill Randa as it approaches. But of course, we get this grand scene. Everyone's excited. We see that they're using, Corey, go ahead and go to the next slide, please. That they're actually using that gamma simulator, the Titan bait or the Titan phone, depending on what you want to call it, to lure a kaiju or a Titan just enough that when they drop into Hollow Earth, it will be safe for them. And I think Corey, as he talked about earlier, was right about this. But I kind of looked at it like people are kind of confused by that. Like, how does a Titan be able to like protect people in the Hollow Earth portal? I think it has a lot to do with how Titans are able to adapt to gravity. We saw Kong be able to do it with Godzilla versus Kong. When he entered Hollow Earth, he was able to adapt easily and survive the fall, unlike the humans were, unless they had a safety vehicle, basically. But they also had they also had the simple facts that Godzilla has been able to travel in and out through the Hollow Earth easily. And I have a theory, Corey, that I think scientifically these Titans are able to kind of draw in gravity and like the energy of gravity and they create basically a protective aura around them when they're traveling through Hollow Earth portals. And if you're nearby them enough, it kind of protects you, like
that gravitational pull of it.
Yeah, the best way I can kind of explain it that maybe you guys will be able to use as a reference, if you've seen the movie Meg, the big shark movie with Jason Statham, they talked about how there was this basically this level, this cloud that separated, the ocean and the deeper parts of the Mariana Trench where all the sharks and all the weird creatures of the past lived. And when an explosion happened, there was basically a safety portal for a little bit, right? There's a bit of balance that sharks could come out, people could come out of, because there was this warm path. It was kind of a safety highway, I guess you could say, for a moment before it was stabilized and balanced, because there was no more gamma radiation blowing through it, essentially. And I think it has something to do with Titans. They obviously draw in and absorb gamma ray powers. That's what intrigues them to come closer. I'm wondering, when they're moving around, because they're absorbing gamma powers, that it makes the area around them lesser, less impactful to hurt humans, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of see it, Trey. I haven't seen the Meg, honestly, but something that I'm familiar with, Superman. I don't know if you know this, like Superman, like in the classic cartoons or something, he would be holding like a ship or something. I know in Justice League, he's like carrying a whole building, and that building should, like the sides of it should like start imploding around him. But Superman, I don't know if you know this, has tactile telekinesis. So when someone is close enough to him or he's touching something, basically there's an aura around him that protects whatever he's holding and keeps it all intact. So I kind of saw it like that, like kind of what you're mentioning, maybe the gravitational pull of, like, I guess that's the ion dragon that we saw. Possibly. Maybe they were close enough to that and following along that the gravity didn't affect them like it did the character in Godzilla versus Kong. So yeah,
I know what you're saying. Trey, do you mean the radiation they give off? Well, it's a bit of both, right? Because we do know they absorb radiation. That is their source of energy that they feed off of. But we also know, just kind of like with, in a gross way, like humans, right? We drink water, we absorb water, but we also leak water, when we sweat, when we cry, when we talk and spit, we're not only are we absorbing water, but we're giving it out. It's kind of the same thing with Titans and gamma ray energy. They're absorbing it, but also it's leaking from their bodies as well. Leaking is kind of a weird word, but you get my point. But a very cool moment because it really does show that when it goes wrong. And my thoughts are of why the energy, because it's not an explosion, right? But I think the simple fact that it's the ion dragon that is the one that's coming up to get this gamma simulator. I think he has a certain ability or a certain effect on Hollow Earth portals that, like ion, right? It's atoms and implosions and stuff like that, electrons. And I think when he goes through them, his energy intensifies it in such a way that it's an overload anytime he goes through some place. So that's why I think the Hollow Earth portal from there in Kansas City during Operation Hourglass kind of implodes a little bit. I don't know. They'll have to explain that hopefully next episode when we see all the craziness go down with the Ion Dragon. But that is kind of how I looked at it, is that the Ion Dragon, it seems like wherever he goes, there is a surge of energy. And based off his name being Ion, kind of tells me that he must have some sort of effect with gamma and the atoms that kind of create these pocket Hollow Earth portals that just affect it in a way that we haven't quite seen other times, like Godzilla have that effect. I know, kind of an interesting thought. Let's see. TJ says, could it be an exchange of radiation between humans and the Titans? Maybe, possibly. I mean, we know that some radiation is okay for the humans, right? Like it actually creates life in some of the cities that they are attacking, but at some points it can also be dangerous radiation that could cause cancer of some sort. But a cool idea nonetheless. And I loved that from this moment on. Corey, go ahead and go to the next slide, please, good sir. We kind of see how Bill Randa is affected by losing Shaw. You know, Puckett is telling him that, hey, we've lost it. You know, we've lost all of our funding because this went horribly wrong. And you can tell Randa is not willing to give up. This is his obsession. You know, this is what triggers him to be the guy that he just can't give up. He can't give up on Bill. He can't give up on Keiko. They have to be out there somewhere. And it becomes everything to the point where he almost forgets Hiroshi, who is having to deal with all this trauma on his own, which can explain why he is the way he is, right? Where he's kind of cold and probably has a different outlook on how important family is. They're willing to leave him, right? And I mean, he's just a young kid. And when they leave him, I think it really tells him that family, the values of family don't really have as much weight as some other people may have. You know, what's your guys' thoughts on that, of how Hiroshi may have dealt with this type of loss, now losing his uncle and then eventually Bill Randa? Go ahead, Josh, if you want to start.
Yeah, no, I just from a human perspective, like something that we've just been analyzing throughout this series, it all kind of makes sense, seeing that, you know, sweet little boy, you know, just deal with loss of both of his parents. Now I guess, you know, he has, I don't know who's technically his guardian, but, you know, he's kind of obviously used to Bill and Shaw, and he's being kind of taken to his Mimi, and you see just like the uncertainty in his eyes, in my opinion. And so already having lost his father, obviously losing his mother, but knowing she, you know, he knew her. So he is having to deal with that trauma all over again. So reliving this new trauma of Shaw dying, you know, after he kept telling him, lying, and from Hiroshi's perspective, probably lying to him. You lied to me. You said you're coming back, you know. You gave me this thing to hold on to you to make me believe you, and you never came back. And then eventually we know what happens to Bill. So poor kid, you know, I'm not excusing his behavior or anything, but I just understand. Yeah. You know, and it sucks we are introduced to his character because we see that he's lied to one family, created another family, but from a kid's perspective, in a weird subconscious way, don't you think that maybe he was like, okay, monsters exist, so what if I do that to my child? Well, I can't leave them by themselves, so he starts another family. And in a way, he's like, it's a backup family. We kind of joked about it, early on. But, he's like, well, I got to have like a legacy. And so I really liked seeing this I'm glad we saw a young Hiroshi, and it kind of informs when we meet and catch up with the adult Hiroshi that I think he's a very consistent character, and its actions make sense to me seeing this background. What about you, Corey?
All great points, Josh. And first, I want to give a shout out to the amazing Webhead. Thank you for joining us. He's been enjoying the content.
Here.
Man. I also really enjoyed seeing the young Hiroshi kind of getting a better understanding why, Shaw has said he was so close to Randa and everything like that, and understanding that they basically raised him after his mom died. And the amount of tragic losses time after time that he has. And there's something that a little bit later in the show he says that like really caught my eye as well, just to explain, the way he kind of treats family altogether anyways. He saw Bill Randa, his, father, kind of go down a path of darkness and craziness. And it just explains a lot about Hiroshi along the way. It makes, in some ways, makes you kind of forgive him a little bit with how, horrible he was for having, two families. It all kind of makes sense now, like...
It definitely gives some reason to the madness of the man,
Absolutely.
Yeah. What else were you gonna say, Corey? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that was good, buddy. That was about it there.
Oh, okay.
Having the knife too. Oh gosh, it was the oh gosh, I'm trying to think of what they
the pocket knife.
I have in my notes here. Yeah, that knife is an interesting knife as well. That pocket knife there. Oh gosh, I'm trying to see where I have.
You're talking about what the meaning of the
Higanokami knife, where he uses that to sharpen his pencils, throughout the life, like just like looping in like where he got that, a pencil sharpening knife from and everything like that. It's interesting as well. So I have some kind of interesting thoughts on that later on when we kind of learn more about.
Okay, I'm curious to hear them, and then when they come up, great. It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, so one thing that I personally loved how this particular scene was shot, when we learned what happened to Shaw in Hollow Earth. One, I get the sense that they weren't down there very long, that it may have been no longer than a day, just based off how they were setting up camp. There wasn't really much established. There wasn't really a tent, so they were just setting up equipment around to start taking data, essentially. So when the Ion Dragon appears and starts attacking them, and we're seeing these explosions of, electricity, and as TJ was saying here, and this is exactly where I was going with this, the ionizing radiation is a type of energy released by atoms that travels in the form of electromagnetic waves, which explains why the implosion happens at the Operation Hourglass, right? With a certain effect that this particular Titan has. The spontaneous disintegration of atoms is called radioactivity, and the excess of energy emitted is a form of ionizing radiation. Exactly. Yeah. See, TJ, my man, you know what you're talking. TJ, we might just have to get you on the show one of these times, brother. That'd be fun, man. TJ knows his stuff. He's like calling it before I ever like TJ even let me have my moment. No, it's all good, brother. TJ, I love reading these comments because some of you have some of these great theories that are just spot on, and TJ, you definitely are catching on to what's going on for sure. But it's just how this was shot cinematography wise, I just thought was super cool. Kind of, the 3D just moving around in one single moment.
Right.
But we see that the Ion Dragon the gravity is pulling Shaw through the Hollow Earth portal once again, and he ends up 20 years later, 1982, in, I think, Japan, right? So insane to see all this take place. But Corey, go ahead and go to the next slide. To see this moment, and we actually see that Kentaro's mom is one of the nurses there.
My character returns.
Right? I love that woman. Like, she is, I don't know what it is about her, whoever wrote her or just the actress, she plays such a gentleness to her and a kindness that is so genuine that you can't help but root for her. And the fact that you realize that she was at a Monarch facility, and that's how she meets Hiroshi, and that's how their love kind of blossoms. But she's kind of aware of a little bit of what Hiroshi was a part of. To her, it's not completely blind to his secrecy or his job is of how different it is. So when she has this moment with Shaw and like trying to take care of him because he's refusing to eat because he wants to know what Bill Randa is. He hasn't been told that. It's been 20 years later. So he takes her hostage for a little bit because he wants some answers. And here he sees this young adult coming up to him, calling him Uncle Lee. And he has a panic attack because he realizes time works very different in Hollow Earth, or at least in this Axis Mundi level, this different pocket Earth that we've been calling a pocket dimension. Guys, what was your thoughts about hearing 20 years later, kind of having this interstellar moment of how gravity works with time? It's been 20 years later, and he probably feels like he was only down there for a couple of hours. What was that moment like for you, Josh?
Yeah, no, just seeing, because I guess from what you're saying and how I interpreted it, it didn't seem like it was that long for Shaw. He just got down there. The mission went bad. He saw the Ion Dragon. It didn't seem like he was there for all that much time. He left in 1962, and then he goes back into this portal, and he wakes up in 1983, and he doesn't know anybody. They're all, speaking language he doesn't know. But I didn't know it was her, but I kind of hoped it was. So when I saw Emiko, who was one of my favorite characters since the beginning of this, I was like, oh my goodness. And yeah, I could just tell it was her by the way she like looks at the Christmas cookie. I think it's like a Christmas cookie. And she's just kind of like, oh, he needs to eat. So I'm going to give him something, maybe he'll eat this. And she's just so gracious to him. But he's just like, I want answers. I want, And so he takes it upon himself, and unfortunately, has to threaten her. Bill Randa, I need Bill Randa. And shout out to this is Wyatt Russell, right? Like, I wasn't too of course I know he's Kurt Russell's son, but the only thing I really actively remember him from is Falcon and Winter Soldier, and he was US. And I don't think I really paid attention. I know he got like death threats from fans, and he had to deal with a lot, but he acting in that series, I don't think was asked that much of him. But this series, seeing him, transition between just, somebody who's frustrated and wants answers, meeting Hiroshi and getting shocked by the fact that the kid that he just left, seemingly is now an adult and giving him the knife. And he knows, and seeing that panic attack play out, it was going to be way by Wyatt Russell's carrying the scene to the point where when you just transition in that scene, in that thumbnail of Kurt Russell, it just the way he was acting, like, started to look like kind of, okay, well, life has went on without me, so I don't belong here anymore. So I'm just going to comply with what Hiroshi wants and just start taking the pills and start, medicating myself to be lethargic and be a zombie. There's no place for him, right? He doesn't have a mission. But you see that transition that Lee Shaw younger, played by Wyatt Russell, transitions to Kurt Russell, to the older Shaw. And so when they see Godzilla from 2014, he's like, nope, I'm back in the game. Like they pulled me back in. So I really loved how Wyatt played this whole scene. All the actors that, of course, the Hiroshi, I don't know his name, but and also Emiko, they all did a great job. But I think that Wyatt Russell really did a great job and impressed me. So I'm going to be paying attention more to him as an actor. But I loved it. What did you think, Super Pro Corey?
Yeah, man. Super awesome stuff here. Obviously, I'm glad that you have the picture of Hiroshi holding up the Hinagami knife. I think it's how you pronounce it, Hinagami. It's HIGONKNAMI knife, and they're pretty cool knives. I did some research into them. These knives are made by these Japanese knife makers, and they customize each one, and they put their brand and their markings on each individual knife that they make. So that's why you see all the Japanese writing and everything like that. So Shaw would have known when he gave that knife. Well, he didn't give him that knife, as he said. He said he's going to give it to him as a loaner because he's not old enough to have a knife. Yep. For him to show back up and have the knife, he knew right away, that is Hiroshi. So that was a cool kind of play with the knife there. The other neat thing that we saw there was Shaw, one of the first things Shaw sees after he kind of takes Kentaro's mom hostage is he sees the actual shuttle launch. So he knew that the shuttle launch, the rocket and the exploration to the moon was 10 some years away. So, now he sees this shuttle type thing flying in the air. You see him like stressed out about that. He kind of freaks out a little bit. He's like, oh man, like something is really off, because that's outside of anything he's ever would have seen as far as what's going on in that current time frame. Kind of skipping forward a little bit when Hiroshi goes to and gives flowers to Kentaro's mom. I absolutely loved that. And there was a line that she said there that I thought was really interesting when she was kind of explaining Shaw. She said, lonely, scared people can do terrible things. And I loved that line there. And I think that's going to maybe come up again in the future, and may explain a little bit more, Shaw, even by today's standpoint, he's still technically lonely. Like, it's interesting that she put in lonely. Scared people can do terrible things. So he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he's still technically lonely because he misses his friends and family. He's been stuck in this, this retirement home for so long now, being drugged and everything like that. I can understand the frustration that he has with Monarch and everything like that. So that exchange was really cool. But I do also like how she's such a sweet person as well, because she also said that Shaw was the only one that kept his promise, and he actually came back to Hiroshi. So I loved that line as well. So I hope that it kind of like, wow, it's like, oh, he, maybe Shaw is the evil person, but he's doing it for because he's lonely, but ultimately he is a good person. So kind of like, again, he has his inner demons and monsters with him. And then the last thing that I wanted to kind of say about this sequence of scenes, I thought, once again, it was really interesting when Hiroshi and Shaw had their conversation, and when they kind of went back and forth, and Hiroshi says, your age defies logic. And it immediately went right into Randa's, and beyond logic lies truth. So how they shared Randa's line together. And then what else was I going to say here? when he gave him back the knife. He gave it back to him as a loan. You know, he's like, hey, you loaned this to me, and he gave him back to this knife, and he was leaving Shaw. Was another big key moment that I thought of too, because obviously he returned the knife, but we know that Hiroshi's eventually going to get the knife back. So I'm going to explain a little bit more into that in a little bit, but I thought that was interesting as well.
Well, you know, as you kind of, you know, we're talking about, we know in episode 8 that when Shaw speaks to Kate, that he says, you know, at first your father thought the same way as Monarch. He's like, but eventually he got on track, right? So we do know at some point there was a bit of reconciliation with the two. We haven't seen that moment. I hope we do, because something tells me that maybe it's the 2014 events, and it leads to, you know, maybe Shaw is able to reveal something to Hiroshi that kind of flips the switch to him about what he needs to do from then on.
I'm just gonna say, since you said you're kind of down the line, I think they're working together now.
Yeah.
You think Hiroshi and Shaw have been a team all this time?
Since they reconciliated things, I think it's possible that they may be working together again. We were already surprised that, you know, Shaw like had these like interconnections and workings within Monarch. I think Hiroshi might be like realizing that Shaw was right about a lot of things after the G-Day event and everything like that, realizing that he needs to work with Shaw to try to, you know, figure this out. And I think when he was in the desert, I think he was trying to, you know, he had that gamma ray thing there.
The gamma ray simulator.
I think he may have been experimenting with some of the things that Shaw said, but he didn't mean to pull up Godzilla. I
didn't fully understand what he was doing.
I think that was a mistake, but I think he's working with Shaw.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. I like all this. And I do see there's like quite the debate going on through the chat about time travel and keeping the MonsterVerse grounded. I mean, yeah, I mean, 2014 Godzilla was definitely a very grounded type film, right? Like very realistic, but they've definitely gone heavy into the science fiction and imagination of it all. I could see where some people are saying it's time travel. I mean, you could look at, I think that's like at face value, you could say that, but it's not. I think it's much more complicated than that. I mean, so far of everything we learn about this show, it's far more complicated than face value themes. And as we talked about earlier with kind of the interstellar kind of thing going on, how gravity affects time. I mean, are they really time traveling if they're just in one place that time moves faster than the other? I guess technically we're all time traveling, you know, because at some place that's not here on Mars, I'm probably 300 years old rather than here I'm, you know, almost 30. So it's an interesting way to look at it, but I'm not sure if it's, I think if you look at it as just time travel, it's just a 2D way of looking at it rather than looking at it third dimensionally or fifth dimensionally, however you want to talk about it. But it's an interesting discussion that all of you guys are having, and I'm digging it. It's cool back and forth ideas for sure. Also, the main Hollow Earth time works normal. It's not the Hollow Earth as a whole. The main, oh yeah. So that was the one part where I was going to say this could be a bit of continuity error in potentially. It's a potential continuity error that we see in Godzilla versus Kong. They do enter at least what we think is the main Hollow Earth realm. And it seems like time works the same way as it does anywhere else, because when they get out of Hollow Earth in Godzilla versus Kong, no time has changed. So it's interesting. Maybe these different pocket realms are much more concentrated gravitational, you know, centric areas that are different. You know, they're changing time in different ways. So it could be think about it this way. Just as Corey kind of talked about with the world tree of Norse mythology, of how there is different realms, the 9 realms, right? maybe each pocket realm works and looks differently than the other. There's different types of energy, there's different types of titans in these different pocket realms that mess with time and in the environment in a different way depending on how gravitationally strong they are. So they could get out of this one place with no effect at all. It's possible.
Yeah, but I think we don't know enough about Hollow Earth to be able to make major claims that we sometimes do. Like there's we really, in the grand scheme of things, Monarch hasn't played with Hollow Earth since the Hourglass incident. They really didn't dive too much deeper in the years of time that went by. So we don't really know all the different workings of Hollow Earth, the portals, and everything like that, since this is still a controversial tinfoil cap style debate amongst the Monarch teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all in. Mm-hmm. We're all living in this fictional universe of monsters and titans, so it's like they really could explain it however they want to at some point, whether you agree with it or not. So that's kind of the fun part about creating this fictional world where titans do exist. It'll be interesting. I do hope they kind of explain it a little more, but something tells me where they kind of get away with it is they don't quite understand it either, right? This is technically our second time exploring Hollow Earth. And maybe they figured out something differently in Godzilla vs. Kong with those vehicles that it was able to kind of negate the gravitational pull of it. There's so many things that you could pick apart. And until we actually see them talk about it, answer it in the show, right now we're just guessing, about how the science of a fictional universe works. It's mentioned crazy.
Trey, you mentioned about theorizing if there is a season 2, which I think we're pretty confident there's going to be. Apex, we haven't explored that at all this season, so I think all that will potentially be explored in how they got to what they got in Godzilla versus Kong. So yeah, I think there's room to explore that and rationalize later on in season 2.
Yeah, I agree. If they wanted to go further down the rabbit hole and kind of explain the different pocket realms, there's a lot of fun they could have with this show if they decide to continue it. In a way, not also mess with what's going on in the continuity of Godzilla versus Kong and, Godzilla Kong, the New Empire, because these pocket realms can just be its own theme. In a way, it's kind of a multiverse in a way, but it's not, right? It's a weird theme, but it's cool.
So one of the themes, Trey, that, when I was kind of thinking about like Hiroshi and the knife, going back and forth, and in my opinion, that he's working back with Shaw again. Another thing that has been in the back of my mind as well, and I don't know if I want to believe this or, think about it being true quite yet, but like one of the things that I thought, could be a possibility is what if Hiroshi, after, being, kicked off the Monarch team and everything like that, what if he's also kind of, not just working with Shaw, but maybe also working with Apex as well?
That's an interesting thought. And I do get, I'll hold the Hiroshi thing once we get to his scene, but I think there's something there for sure, Corey. But yeah, we kind of see that Shaw and his dear friend Hiroshi they're kind of broken. They clearly Hiroshi is hurt by promises made, and I love one of the quotes that Hiroshi said that I think is super powerful, where Shaw's trying to convince and plead to Hiroshi that, like, no, your father was right about everything. We have work to do. We have to make this right in a way, and to prepare people for what's coming. And Hiroshi and he's like, it wasn't just an obsession. It was, I love that Hiroshi says, then it was a choice. And he's like, I don't know if that makes it worse.
Yeah.
And in a way that explains their relationship, right? Like, clearly Randa really became obsessed with his work and trying to get answers, because I think he could never let go what happened to Shaw and what happened to Keiko, because you could say maybe there was always hope in Randa's mind that maybe they were out there somewhere, maybe they were still alive, and that he needed to find them, and becoming obsessed with his work forced him to abandon his son Hiroshi, which in turn created that distance between them, that conflict, between their what's the word I'm looking for? Something with a relationship. It created the turmoil. You could say turmoil in their relationship, but also I think it affected Hiroshi's views on maybe Monarch and the Titans in general. As we'll get to that,
maybe one can say
rift. Yep. Rift between them for sure. Some people made a theory that in the final episode, our characters escape the pocket reality and they travel to 2019 to the events of King of the Monsters. What do you think? It's a cool theory, and I don't see, because of how they set up with Shaw and how Keiko hasn't aged, something tells me we're not getting out of this without any type of time change, or years have passed since they've been in there, which I like that idea. I really do. It'd be cool if they did do King of the Monsters, just because I felt like we've ignored King of the Monsters in this whole Monarch show a little too much. We haven't really set up any of the themes that are kind of going on around this time. At least what was considered canon in the comics, or even in, some of the MONSTERVERSE timelines that are addressed in other themes like Kong Skull Island. But I don't know. It'd be cool if there was something that they could just take a nod, because that's leading up to it, or at least with Hiroshi and Kentaro. But Corey, speaking of the timeline, let's go ahead and look at that real quick.
Yes, I've been looking forward to this all day. Man, thank you so much, Trey, for putting in all the hard work for this. I've been, I mentioned during the show watch party that I was like, man, it'd be really cool to see if we could get like a timeline. And I was kind of more referring to the timeline of the events of, Operation Hourglass, and when Shaw escapes Hollow Earth, and Trey went so much further. So Trey, I'm gonna let you explain this amazing timeline that you've put together. So we'll kind of go back and forth of going into big screen of the timeline, and just so you can kind of explain it to us, Trey. But where do you want to kick off on your timeline?
Well, we'll just start at the beginning, right? And I won't talk about each event, but as you can see here, I really did go kind of down the rabbit hole, because the tough part about some of the show, and I literally was like going through each episode when Corey on Thursday night was like, dude, make a timeline. So when I was making this, it was hard to find what was truth, what was canon, and what were some things that could be canon. So I really broke it down with kind of the first event you could really talk about in the MONSTERVERSE is 1943 with the USS Lon. If you want to go further back to that, you could, but really where things really start to kick off is the Lawton incident with Bill Randa when they're attacked by the Ion Dragon. And then if you want to consider it canon with Godzilla Awakening, technically Kong Skull Island says this too, but Monarch Legacy of Monsters says differently in a way. Or you could say there's multiple branches in Monarch, who knows? But according to the Awakening Godzilla comic and Kong Skull Island, they both say 1946 is the start of Monarch. This is when Harry Truman founded it, and when Serizawa's father was starting it. But if you look at when Monarch Legacy of Monsters says it basically started, it was 1952 when General Puckett tasked Shaw to protect Keiko, who eventually meets up with Randa and sees once again the USS Lawton with the Ion Dragon doing something weird with it, making it all slimy. Who knows what exactly the dragon was doing with that thing. But as you can see, we have our different timelines of the Operation Lucky Dragon 54, Monster Island, when we had the gamma radiation simulator. There's a lot that happens in 1955. It's when Randa meets Keiko's son Hiroshi, and their relationship starts to blossom. And then not 4 years later, Dr. Keiko goes missing in action. She falls in Hollow Earth with all those little Titan beetles. So that's how she was protected. 1959. So 4 years later.
1959 is when she fell in the pit.
Yeah. Well, and it is, TJ, I will say that I always thought that was interesting. The way they portrayed Bill Randa in his younger years, they kind of made it seem like he was never in the military, but obviously he was in the Navy. So maybe it's just after, you could say that maybe he doesn't like the military because of what they did to him with the USS Lawton. They called him crazy. They told his family that everything he saw was a lie, because he was the one trying to say, oh, there was a creature that attacked our ship, and the government basically shut him up. So it's understandable why he might have the feelings that he does towards the military and the government, and why he's really focused in on his research and his studies to prove that he's right. I mean, when you think about it, Bill Randa throughout his life was just constantly trying to prove himself, because everyone was calling him crazy. He was the conspiracy theorist, right? But in the end, he was always right, which is kind of crazy. But not 3 years later. So when you think about all the things Hiroshi had dealt with, losing his mother in 1959, 3 years later, he loses his uncle, Shaw. And then 11 years later, he loses his father, Bill Randa. And then 9 years later, freaking Lee Shaw shows back up out of nowhere and hasn't aged a day. So it's really, really crazy when you think about it. I know some people are asking, how old is Hiroshi, or when was he born? My guess is he was born somewhere between 1950 to 1955, somewhere in that time frame. So, because it looks like he's fairly young when we meet him in 1955, so he's somewhere in that age. But yeah, as you can kind of see, all the different events, it gets quiet in the 80s, the 70s, throughout the 90s and early 2000s, but things start to pick up again, because once G-Day happens in 2014, this is when Aftershock happens shortly after, if you consider the comic canon. But obviously the post G-Day crew and their 2015 adventures that we're seeing right now. Monster Zero is discovered in 2016, then King of the Monsters 2019, and then 5 years later, Godzilla versus Kong happened. So after G-Day, you can kind of really see that the surgence of Titans really picks up after, and you could believe that that might have to do with something with Janjira and back in 1999 when they were doing nuclear energy, but more importantly when Korra was recruited by Apex back in 2012, 2013, and they started working on technology for Mecha Godzilla. I don't know. You start to see that things really start to kick off, and Titans are really starting to cause a stir, and it could be because of what Hiroshi's doing. So that could lead into something which we could talk about that right now. Corey, go ahead and go to the next slide if you want.
Bro. No, well, like, interesting. Yeah. Whoa.
TJ, it's possible. He could be named after Hiroshima. I don't know. My guess is probably not, just of how it would appear Keiko kind of feels about the World War II events and how she feels about the bombs. I would think she wouldn't want to name her child after the weapon that destroyed her people, and that she has a strong reason of why she doesn't want to tell the government about the other Titans, because she thinks they're going to create worse weapons. I don't know. It's an interesting thought, though. It's a cool theory. I just don't know if she would do that. It seems interesting. Your thoughts, guys, now that we kind of seen the timeline of how the events unfold. Corey, does it change your thoughts or give you ideas about the Monsterverse?
Yes, in some ways. I think Trey, like, I'm so one of the things that one of the reasons why I wanted the timeline, Trey, is because I wanted to see how many years pass in an hour, basically. And I think, one thing that Shaw says, he was down there for a couple hours. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say he was down there for 3 to 4 hours, right? Make it easy on us. Let's say he was down there for 4 hours, you know? If that's the case, every hour is basically 5 years on Earth. So we'll bring that back up a little bit later as well. So trying to do some math in my head. But yes, I really appreciate you working on that timeline. I think it's going to help kind of explain some things more next episode. And I'm curious how they... Yeah. Let's just continue on.
Okay.
Josh, any comments? Any thoughts?
No, just very impressed. Shout out to both of y'all for the idea, Corey, and for you, Trade, spending hours doing this. And all right. No, I appreciate that too, because honestly, when we were doing, not to say you should have done this sooner, Trey, but because of your theory about Shaw's age, if you don't see it all lined out like this, that was the misdirect the show obviously wanted us to just not pick up on. But seeing the timeline now, how you laid this out, Trey, it all kind of makes sense. And thank you for doing that, because I think now Corey's onto something, and I think the chat is onto something that is going to come up. So y'all, I'm just so impressed.
I appreciate that, bro. Thank you so much. But now that we've kind of finished with the legacy cast and at least where they're at in their story, we go to our present day crew with Kentaro, and we see that he wakes up in the hospital just like Shaw does. Though he didn't fall into Hollow Earth, he was able to survive the events of Kazakhstan, where I guess some of their Monarch agents were captured and imprisoned, which is insane and scary all at the same time. But he was able to make it out with Duvall and Tim. And Tim, the belief is that, because they don't know, Shaw and Kate and May, or Cora, however you want to call her now, are dead, that they fell into the pit and their lives are lost. And the deputy director is telling Kentaro, it's time to move on. Your journey with Monarch has officially ended, and it's time for you to live your life and forget all about this. But we know he's dealing kind of with the same things that Kate dealt with in the beginning of the show, which was survivor's guilt. And he's having that same reaction and in a way, maybe understands her a little better now. But he's not, just like Aranda, he's not willing to give up. And he believes they're out there somewhere, that they can find them, that Kate and May and Shaw are still alive, and that's his responsibility to go searching for him. And I love that whole moment that Josh was talking about earlier with him and his mom. Once again, I love this character. She is like the black, of course, just absolutely Dark Horse, great character in this scene. Just love her to death, because it seems like she's really able, and maybe it's because of Hiroshi and helping him with his issues, that she's kind of now seeing she's really good at just helping people deal with their trauma and getting through them, which makes it almost harder. It makes me wonder some things about Hiroshi in a way. If maybe he's not as bad as the guy. What's that?
This is the real family.
Well, yes. I almost wonder if Hiroshi is not really Kate's father, and that he had a friend that maybe he took on this adventure with him, kind of similar to Bill and Shaw.
The way he
I don't know either. To me, it kind of seems weird. Like if there's one character I want them to focus on a little bit more in the next episode, or at least in season 2, they need to start giving us some answers about Hiroshi, because when he appears in the office, because he sees Kentaro, digging through his files as well, there's no. He doesn't make any answers. He doesn't provide him anything or comforts or explains why he did what he did or who he really is. But he's obviously very hurt about when he learns the news of Kate, but it's only because he hasn't learned what happened to Kate. Because I think in the next episode, what we're going to see is when he's told that Kate and Shaw fell into the pit, he's going to have that. It was just like, well, he's going to figure it out. He's going to be like, they're still alive. But Super Bro, you're raising the hand. You're like, please let me answer.
one thing that I have to say that you missed that I thought was like a key thing is when Monarch, when we first see Kentaro and he's in the hospital, and Tim was saved by Duvall, which was interesting to see. So we saw her save him after pointing a gun at him. But the biggest thing that I noticed when Monarch was explaining to Kentaro that what happened, his family's dead, everything went out. He said right after they told him that his family was dead that he said we should finish Shaw's work. He says we finished Shaw's work is what he was saying. Monarch immediately cut him off and said talked about Shaw's side
I know
they moved away. So when he said that little line, we finished Shaw's work, right before they cut him off, and he was cut off, I think he's back on Shaw's side again. That he thinks that we need to get rid of these portals. Now, that being said, who do I also think's on Shaw's side? Hiroshi.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to talk about it and start working together as well to help try to find them, get them out of this pit, and hopefully get them back sooner than later.
Okay, that's an interesting thought, Josh. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree, because the way that we're obviously having a fracturing of the cast, not just from different time periods now, but like they're in different dimensions or something. So I do think that's going to come into play, Corey. And something about this scene I did want to mention, throughout, on episodes where I've missed, you guys have kind of talked about how you've been frustrated. Like, seemingly our main character was Kate, right? And seeing her behavior, it's very not something you would expect from a main character. And then May or Cora, and seeing how her redemption happened, but then now she's working with Apex once again secretly while being along with Kate and the team. And then we see Shaw, and we see he's kind of having flawed, although he's Kurt Russell, like Corey said, he's one of the characters, but we don't know, is he going to be a villain or not? For me, the reason I love Emiko is seemingly on the surface, she's the main character for me, because she doesn't seem to be a monster. She's a mother. But who's to say, kind of like Corey's theory, like maybe she has secrets, herself. And I did kind of interesting, like Hiroshi's reaction, kind of like you were saying, Trey. The weird, like, it's almost like when he sees Kentaro, when Hiroshi sees Kentaro, I don't know, it's just kind of, there is like some barrier, just kind of like, what are you doing here? Just kind of shrugs it off. But then when he hears his daughter, Kate, he's just like broken down. So there might be something to that, Trey. I forget who said it, Trey or Corey, but I do think that y'all are on to something. I definitely am seeing, obviously there's so many threads with the show. We're not going to be all wrapped up in one more episode. So I'm along for the ride. I'm already looking at season 2 with a lot of theories kind of in my head. So I think.
Which, Josh, you remind me of something by bringing up Kentaro's mom again, which also helped lead me to this theory that Kentaro's full on board with working in this universe now, because when Kentaro's mom Emiko brings him home, she's like, well, you can call your old job and get your old job back, and he's like, I don't want my old job. And he's talking about his survivor's guilt for losing Kate, and the struggle that he's dealing with that. And she says, I'm sorry, and that he's feeling it. And he's like, Kentaro says something to the fact that he doesn't know what he's going to do. And his mom says, yes, you do. And to me, that means, by hearing him say, we finished Shaw's work, that he doesn't want to go back to his old job. And then later on, we see him digging around in his dad's files. He's going to be looking for Kate. So I'm really hoping. I know that they're probably going to come back potentially next episode or something along those lines. I think they're going to close it out, kind of. But I'm hoping we get that season 2 and there's some revisiting of these different characters going off on all these missions.
Some good points. But as obviously their relationship between Hiroshi and Kentaro is very interesting. You could tell that Kentaro had maybe more of a loving relationship with his father, and to see him finally, when he tells him like, we've lost Kate and it's all your fault, and he sees his father break down, he kind of like is that moment of, I guess you could say, revenge for him. He's laying it on his father. He's just like, this, he kind of sees how broken he's by it, and he's just like, you know what, now I'm gonna lay it all on you. Like, I'm just, this is you. If you didn't like have the same family, you didn't go off and leave us, and like didn't, went off and do all these crazy things and didn't include us, that we would have never lost her, essentially. And it'll be an interesting scene to see how they get past that.
Dude, I can't wait for it, because literally he's going to ask, he has to ask Kentaro, what happened? How did they die? And when Kentaro's like kind of explains it that they're following Shaw, he's going to be like, interesting. And then that when he hears that, Shaw was holding on to Kate when they both fell in, he's immediately going to remember, oh shit, Shaw got through this once. He could get him back. He could get her back. So it's going to be new mission. Let's go.
Yep.
So excited for it. I can't wait for that.
Interesting. It'll be cool to see how they certainly handle it, but they're definitely leaving it for us in episode 10. Corey, can you go to the next slide, please, sir? So we do see Shaw and of course May, and they have survived the fall. And we do, once again, right, we were talking about how when these portals happen, there's this electrical magnetic energy, just like TJ was talking about in the chat, and how there's kind of these bursts of it in this hollow earth pocket dimension that we're seeing. And Shaw's able, obviously, he kind of knows how to deal with it, right? How to handle it. He's saving the day with May, because May's not handling the situation all that well. But what I love about it is we know that May entertains the idea of working with Apex again, or at least giving them some information. At one point in Godzilla vs. Kong, they actually talk about the energy source, right? How they want to use that for their tech, which eventually is used as the energy source for Mechagodzilla. It makes me wonder if they find this out because of Korra, May, when she gets back, if she's the one that lets slip, like there's this energy surge that happens, it's super powerful, and the world is just beaming with power. And that kind of gives them the thought, well, this is the energy source we need to get Mechagodzilla moving. What's your guys' thoughts on that? Do you think Korra's the one that slips it?
I could totally see that. Like, yeah, because just seeing, obviously we already, like I mentioned, we see that she's back in the mission. She's, for Kate, really, which selfishly, but she's also playing both sides, right? And it's kind of interesting. This might seem random, but the scene that you have the thumbnail for when the music, shout out to Nicki Minaj, I don't want no frauds. I don't want no drama when you call. I was like, what's going on here? But I think
if our watch party, we were like all looking at each other like, this doesn't match. And then we saw it just Barnes like, banging out on Turbies, which makes sense for her character, right? Like, she's a nerd. She's kind of antisocial, probably awkward. So she just focuses in on her music and gets the work done. But it was an interesting scene transition there that we were all like, whoa.
Because normally they're so smooth, like they're so smooth, and you don't really notice the transaction. Like, oh, we're back to the old cast, with just the opening of the theme. So the music would like throw us off. We're like, what the heck? It was a great transition though. I have to see what happened. You're dead on, Josh.
And you connecting that, Corey, about Korra, May, and the energy source. And those lyrics are all kind of like, oh, I'm doing the little connection. I was like, are those lyrics, are those intentional for, maybe Korra fraud on this mission? Shaw's trying to help her. In my opinion, when you see May, in the last episode I watched y'all, or your discussion, and I said, oh, there wasn't too much of the May and Kate thing. And I was like, in my head, I was screaming at y'all. I was like, dumb you know what, fell into the pit because of Kate. Like it was right. And so I kind of see May or Cora as kind of being selfish to protect herself, but also like she would just kind of throw anyone under the bus, you know. And Shaw's over here trying to save her life, but he's giving her information too and backstory. And I think, just like you said, Trey, ultimately, if she does make it back, all this exposition that Shaw has given her will be given to the wrong people. In this case, Apex, to explore and to further their mission. So I really enjoyed seeing this, and I loved the pairing because I think it gave May a reason to be with Shaw, but also complete her mission that Apex has sent her.
Yeah. I did love with that scene with Barnes, and I did see did a question pop up, Corey, about what was Barnes reading? I thought I saw someone ask about it. Like, what is the gamma ray pattern?
I have an idea on that, Trey. I know
okay.
We'll
go ahead and talk about it. So obviously Barnes, she's reading some gamma rays. As you know, of course, Shaw was closing them. We see some of the different Hollow Earth portals were really starting to burst with energy. And it's starting to intensify, you know, as we kind of talked about in another show, where it's like if you poke holes through a couple of wires and you start plugging those holes, the pressure is going to start building up. So, you know, Shaw could be sending us down a road with his mission to close these Hollow Earth portals in a very bad way. It could explode and create maybe even more Hollow Earth portals that causes a bigger problem for us. But as Barnes is reading this information, she's starting to notice an anomaly in the, well, I guess you could say anomaly, but a structured anomaly in the gamma ray readings where it's a bit of a pattern, right? It's could be some form of Morse code or someone trying to contact the outside world. I've heard some people say because of Godzilla King of the Monsters, he's very aware and he tries to let humans know when stuff is going down. Like in King of the Monsters, he goes to Castle Bravo and he's like, hey, someone's about to release King Ghidorah, get ready, like it's about to throw down, I need your help. That's what Michael Dougherty said in his director videos, just talking about some of his ideas of what some scenes meant. But I get the sense that it's actually another character that we'll hold on to. We'll hold on to it at the end because I want to surprise you. Well, it's not a surprise because we already know because we get through the episode. You already know. Corey, go ahead and go to the next slide.
Boom! Thank God, I needed to talk about it.
So we get what we have all started now to call Titanus Pumbaa. I think who came up with that? Was that Koji who said Titanus Pumbaa?
Did say Pumbaa, yeah.
Brilliant, freaking brilliant. Titanus Pumbaa, which I personally love the design of this boar. You know, this thing, it looked savage, scary, but I also loved kind of the natural element of it, you know, where there's like a forest kind of growing on its back. It's very similar to what they did in Kong Skull Island with that buffalo creature. What did you guys think of that Titan design? Like in terms of all the Titans we've seen so far, with the Frostbark, the Ion Dragon, the Beetle creature, or I think they call it the Indo Swarm beetle thing. What's your thoughts so far on all the Titans we've seen? Is this up there, or do you guys think Frostbark or Iron Dragon is still the best, other than G-Man, of course?
I like the design because, like you were kind of saying, like as somebody admittedly Team Kong, I did mention at the beginning that I wanted to see a little bit more Kong connection and whatnot. Maybe there's room in season 2, but for me, I don't know, just the way his design was made, it kind of invoked like something a little bit in the way that the scene is. I was just getting the tone and the color palette of Kong a little bit more. And then watching you guys during the watch party, just see, okay, he's fine, he's going away, and then knowing that this was coming back around, I was just kind of like, like you kind of like you think, oh, he's not a threat, and then you see him again in that snarl and that snout, and I was just like, and seeing that focus that comes onto Kate, you're just like, oh, she's dead. Right. So I was really intimidated by the design. I was like, at first I was like, maybe the Frostbark is cooler per se, but I do like the design of this. We didn't get to see a lot of his functionality, so I still would say the Frostbark is my personal favorite, just because we saw a lot more of that and creature. But I do like the design of this Titanus.
Yeah. I do like, to me, it's a bit of a, just in terms of like a artistic continuity, in a way of like designing their Titans where like it's familiar. You could look at this and be like, yes, this belongs in the MonsterVerse for sure. It's not so outlandish that you're like, that's just creepy. But yeah, I agree. Titanus Puma, Super Bro Corey, your thoughts?
Bro, Josh, I'm really glad you talked about color palette and such like that, because that's definitely noticeable. The orange color palette for Khan, and the kind of that blue palette in this Hollow Earth realm, wherever it is, maybe for Godzilla. So it kind of has that Godzilla v Khan color palettes and vibes there as well. Especially when I think of Khan's battle axe with the scale of that fin of Godzilla glowing blue, and then his bone of a kaiju handle glowing orange together as well. So there's definitely some cool thoughts there as well. I like this. We're calling it Titanus Pumbaa. I like it, man. I'd like to eat it. I think
Corey just looked at it like that looks like some good pork shoulder. Not to have
some pineapple going, and let's have some al pastor tacos.
Maybe some Godzilla roasting. Just a little G-man.
Yeah, exactly. I want to stay down here a little bit longer because I like Titanus Pumbaa.
Oh my god, I love what the chat is saying right now. Dean Classified was like, "Where is Titanus Timon?" And Restore the Cyberverse guy without missing a beat says, "King Caesar ate him." Which, if you guys don't know who King Caesar is in the Toho monster, he is basically a lion-like kaiju creature. So that's hilarious. Oh my god, you guys are too funny. But of course, she's kind of dazed and confused. She's definitely appears to be in a bit of a different area, because as we saw, blue and kind of orange glowing where Shaw and Korra were, she's kind of getting this orange and green kind of thing going on. So you could say it's at night, but she's clearly on her own, and she's in a very dangerous spot, but not for long, because when this Titanus Pumbaa goes in for the kill, an arrow hit the boar. And who could it be? Just as Corey said, Dr. Keiko, Grandma in town. She has no idea this is Grandma, but crazy. This scene, this is where it leaves you off on a huge cliffhanger. We did kind of expect it to happen in the last episode. I think Kojay, while he kind of theorized about it, was more of a hope, as he says. He was like in the first episode, was like, "Oh no, I don't want, like, she's alive, she's down there." He turned out to be true, even though he was kind of like, "Oh, it's crazy." Awesome moment, wonderful to see her back, and clearly because of how we know how Hollow Earth works in terms of time, she hasn't been down there very much. Not that long, maybe weeks, months, maybe a year, if even. Because one thing I was paying attention to when I saw her was how do her clothes look, and they don't look ripped up. Yes, she looks a little dirty, a little ragged, but they don't look like it's been years and she's been living in the forest by herself.
So you're dead on, Trey. Which you heard me say it earlier. If every hour is 5 years, and she's been down there, right now it's 2015 time frame. Mm-hmm. So since from 1959, that would be 56 years, which means it's possible that she's only been down there for 11 hours. If math is right.
11 hours?
Yeah. So if 1962 to was Operation Hourglass, he jumped to 1982, 20 years. We're saying we're saying he was down there for 4 hours. Since Shaw himself said a couple of hours. So every 4 hours, every hour is 5 years. 56 years being down there so far. That comes out to 11.2 for math for hours. So,
I mean, hey, if that is the case, she is the most resourceful person I've ever met, because in that time frame, she developed a bow, some arrows, and she's ready to throw down. That girl did not waste time. She's like, I got this.
Well, she is resourceful, and she had to adapt pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, clearly she's highly intelligent, right? You know, there's no question about that. But it'll be an interesting, because clearly Kate knows who she is, right? She's going to recognize that it's her grandmother. It'll be interesting to see how Keiko takes that, how her reaction is, because she, as far as she knows, time has just moved on naturally, you know, and for her to see that her grandmother out there and to hear what Hiroshi's been up to, maybe she'll be disappointed in him. But clearly they're setting up the biggest reunion, which is Shaw and Keiko, which I think will be a very interesting situation, because I think I'm not sure she would be happy with his choices either to close the portals. I think she's always been about coexistence and balance with the Titans, and I think she's going to realize immediately that his mission is going to throw off the balance and cause a bigger problem. What's your guys' thoughts about Keiko's return and any theories to it?
Corey, do you want to go first, or?
Yeah, it's up to you. Yeah, let me spit this out. So yes, I was wondering, dude, like, how insane would it be? Because Keiko got there first. What if she saw everything that went down with Shaw being there as well? You know, like, she saw the craziness of going on. She saw what happened, and she saw. So obviously, she knows that the Titan brought her with her, and that's how she's, you know, she's there right now. She then saw Shaw leave via Titan, getting sucked out by him. So I wondered, she's trying to figure out a way, either out or something. She sees, Shaw's, what Shaw brought with him. We have this gamma ray, which she would have immediately recognized, whether she saw Shaw or she found it, an hour or so later, after Shaw left, is definitely possible. But she sees this gamma ray, so she knows that people are trying to get down there. My wonder is if she's the one that's using these gamma ray frequencies, which is kind of what you were going to say, Trey, too. So I'll let you dive deeper into it. But I wonder if she could be trying to tell people she's down there for sure, because they said that, somebody's trying to say something. But I also wonder if she's trying to call Godzilla to help her get out.
Interesting. I mean, I definitely think she is the one calling with the gamma ray simulator, because to me, yes, while it does make sense that Godzilla could be calling people, I just don't see his being in a pattern, being like, when you think of patterns, you think manipulation of trying to hit a beat. And I almost wonder, and I wish Barnes would have looked at it maybe a little closer to see if it was maybe Morse code, because I would think if someone would know Morse code, it could be Keiko. So maybe that'll be shown in the next episode, because I get the sense that she did find at some point the gamma ray simulator that Shaw had when he went down there, but she also has the vessel, because as we know, Shaw did not leave, like, he didn't come out of Hollow Earth with the original vessel that they were in, with his buddies. So I think she's found it, and it could be their ticket out. Who knows how they do that? Maybe by turning it on, and hopefully that something pulls them with it. It could be the Ion Dragon, and that would be a very bad situation, because we know the Ion Dragon's not very, very nice to humans. But it's an interesting situation that I think she's going to be the answer to their way out in a way. But what's your thoughts, Joss?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I agree with what Corey was saying earlier about possibly only being 11 hours, because I flashed back earlier. We talked about the scene of Shaw and Bill. Before Operation Hourglass, we see them walking together. And in my opinion, the first time that that's their relationship, right? Mm-hmm. Without Kiko. And they're talking about how she would be running this place. She'd be, she'd have all kinds of stuff going on. And so it's kind of teeing up what you're talking about, Corey, how she would just be, she's a go-getter, even though she's alone in this unfamiliar place, she would retroactively find that equipment more than likely, probably did watch what happened with Shaw from a safe distance, right? Mm-hmm. Explored the aftermath, retrofitted some equipment, figured it all out. And so, yeah, I think I could see it in your eyes, Corey. I was like, I think Corey should go first. I was like, yeah, you guys are really going deep into the series. And I think
we all are.
Yeah, that I'm really appreciating is that one of the reasons I loved Godzilla versus Kong, like we said, was just the monster stuff, right? But I'm fully invested now in all this toxic family drama, all this, like I told you, like the Kate, May, Kentaro stuff. From just somebody who's a spectator, I was just kind of like, this is not right, of course, but it's interesting and it's entertaining. So I had my popcorn going, and yeah. The drama that's going to happen if Kiko ultimately comes back to Monarch in 2015 or whatever time period, it's going to rustle a lot of feathers.
Which I'm glad you said that, Josh, because that like the only little portion of it that bothered me was the fact that they were brother and sister and they seemed to be bonding really well. So like that was the only part that like frustrated the heck out of me. But after watching this episode, I was like, man, if they go back, because they're definitely have been down there for a little bit now. If they go back, well, we don't know how long to say, but if they do get back and it's a little bit later, it's going to make it a little bit easier if young, Kate and May are together versus some old Kentaro looking off in the distance. So like, hopefully Kentaro, if they do get back and it is, way down the line, Kentaro has his family and stuff like that, and he's still working for Monarch, and he kind of gets to welcome them back, kind of like Hiroshi did to Shaw. So I'm hoping, something along those lines. I don't know.
And Kentaro, seemingly, in my opinion, that I've seen, I know we're kind of like, oh, that's your girl, that he saw the Kate, holding on to May from behind. He just kind of looked over and was okay, and seemingly, in my opinion, not saying anything and seemed okay with it. And what's he talking about with Hiroshi? He's talking about wanting to find his sister to Monarch head.
I totally forget her name. I just call her the deputy director because I can never remember it.
He's wanting to find Kate. He's focused on Kate. So I think he's kind of like done with May in a sense. So I think you're right, Corey. We're kind of teeing up for some kind of like, okay, well, this is okay now because this is the situation. So
yeah. You're absolutely right. It's going to be interesting. Oh gosh, I had one more thing. I lost it.
Verdugo. Thank you, TJ. Verdugo. Yeah, Deputy Director Verdugo. Yep. Thank you, sir.
I know. I will talk about that a little bit later.
Okay. But that's where it ends us. It ends us with Keiko's returned, and shit's about to go down next episode.
TJ has his thing too.
So TJ says, my Godzilla Keiko Kate connection. Godzilla sees Keiko as an equal, i.e., like he does Mothra. Godzilla sees Keiko as a titan worth protecting. Ooh, like a force of nature. And even Shaw kind of says that, right? Like she's a force of nature. This is why when Godzilla saw Kate, he didn't see Kate, he saw Keiko. I like it. I love anytime people think Godzilla is a super highly intelligent creature because, like I said, I think Godzilla doesn't get enough credit when it came to like Godzilla versus Kong. Everyone kept saying like, well, Kong is clearly the more intelligent one because he can speak, he can talk. I was like, but Godzilla is highly intelligent too. Like when he had that moment with Sarazawa, in both movies, like you could tell there was things going on in his mind. It was like he was having a conversation with Serizawa. You realized what he was trying to do. So I don't know. I always liked the idea that, I know it's probably not true, but when I first saw King of the Monsters, one of the theories I had was when Serizawa, releases the atomic bomb to heal Godzilla to give him strength. I always thought, would it be cool if, in a way, Serizawa's soul and mind like melded with Godzilla? So in there, Serizawa lives. I don't think that's the case, but I always thought that was like a cool idea. But Corey, you wanted to go in a little bit more with Keiko and right?
Oh no. I was just gonna say one more thing too. We've been talking about him a lot. I kind of hope we get some. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I would love to see Serizawa.
Yes,
we do. I still think we're gonna get like a big cameo somewhere of someone from the MonsterVerse. To me, it makes sense if it's Serizawa or even the Russells, from King of the Monsters. We need someone to kind of tie in a little bit more of the MonsterVerse, even if it's like Jonah, or hell, I'd be willing to take anyone from Godzilla versus Kong. We need something to kind of tie in another piece to remind us that we're still in this universe, rather than weird separate thing that doesn't matter but does matter. I don't know.
Yeah.
Guys, so next episode, season finale, episode 10.
Why already?
I know.
Is going to be called Beyond Logic. And the synopsis is: the team struggles to find a way out of Axis Mundi, which I guess is what they're going to be calling it. Kentaro and Tim make an unexpected alliance. With who? Who would Tim and Kentaro make an unexpected alliance? I feel like the safe bet, and probably the one that's going to be kind of at a bit of a letdown, is Duvall. Because Duvall's kind of on her own team now. No. Corey has a different theory. Who are you thinking?
It's Hiroshi.
Is that really it? But I feel like it already makes sense that they're already going to team up.
No, because right now Kentaro doesn't like his dad. He's kind of against him for everything that he's done, and we already know that Monarch is, not following Hiroshi and his tinfoil hat type of things as well. I think, I think it's going to be the three of them. It'd be cool if, Wayne Enterprises says, I hope it's Jonah. It would be cool if it's one of those, or Serizawa. I think that would also be super cool if it was one of them. But Hiroshi, I think it's coming along for the ride now too.
Okay. What's your thoughts about that, Josh? Who's the unexpected alliance?
I would agree with Corey, but just for the sake of not taking Corey's guess, as somebody who loves Ken Watanabe so much, I know you just did your Batman Begins talk with Matt Dan's thoughts, Trey. Remembering that, that swerve that happened with Ra's al Ghul. I love Ken Watanabe as an actor, and I would love to see him show up finale as a cameo, because what I'm thinking, honestly, is Kiko will show up in 2019 after Serizawa has died, or maybe after King of the Monsters, or in between, and potentially show up to try to take over for him. So, if that's the case, in my own wanting projection of the series, I would want to see Serizawa one time before that happens. So, hopefully, maybe trying to help along the path. So, I'm going to say Serizawa, but I don't know. Probably not. But Corey's probably got the better guess.
I don't know. I think it's all plausible, buddy. I like what Keith Donkey Kong says here. What if it's Apex, Trey?
That's certainly possible. To me, like when they say unexpected alliance, maybe it's because we've done so much like breaking down the show and like kind of have these theories that something. It's like I'm trying to think what is unexpected to me, So like Hiroshi doesn't seem unexpected to me. That seems logical that they are already going to team up, because he's going to be the one that says they're still alive once he finds out Kate and Shaw and Cora fell in, Hollow Earth. He's gonna put the dots together. So to me, that's not unexpected. That's expected.
Please look at Orc's comment.
Orc says they team up with Godzilla to get down there and to go get the group out.
Dude,
they need a Titan to get back into.
Dude,
I like that.
Dude, Hiroshi sees his mom one last time. Dude.
Oh.
Dude.
Beans coming in hot.
It's a cool idea. It's a cool idea. There's definitely a few things that need to happen this next episode. Assuming, you know me, I hate it when, like, if they set up a super insane cliffhanger that, and like, there's no hope of season 2, I'll be pissed. You know, like, if I need some closure, if that's the case. To me, they have a lot. It says this next episode is going to be 44 minutes, which I don't know how the hell they're going to do that.
Why did they do that to us?
Right. To me, it should have been, it should have been an hour long. They need to explain Hiroshi a little bit. They need to kind of tell us, one, where did that, well, technically Kate's the older sibling, right? So they need to explain, where does Kate's mom come into this and why, you know? And why does he make the decision? Like, you could just say, well, he made a bad decision and fell in love with another person and decided to have a second family. I hope it's just not that. I need a little bit I need some depth to him that we haven't got before. I also need to know what he's up to. What's his mission? Is he working with Shaw, like Corey said? Or somewhat part of me thinks that Hiroshi might be doing something a little more sinister. And I don't think it's like so much. Once again, I don't think any villain thinks they're the villain. I think he, based off his history of, you know, what the Titans have taken away from him, what Monarch has taken away from him, I think he blames them still for a lot of things. So this could be kind of his revenge story in a way. I don't know about that, but
people can do terrible things.
Exactly. Going back to that quote. So in some weird way, like Shaw's technically not the villain, right? But he's kind of doing some things that could cause a major problem for us and in a way become the villain, right? You either see yourself as a hero, like, or you either die as a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. It could be he's definitely lived a long life. These guys are becoming the villains in a weird way. I don't know. To me, we just need some explanations about Hiroshi, his mission, and where the plans are to go after this. And they need to explain, if the kids do, Kate and May and Shaw and Keiko somehow get out of Hollow Earth, and for Kate and May and Shaw at the time, I guess you could say, if no time has changed, they're going to have to explain this. You know, because right now they're confusing a lot of us with how time works exactly in these different pocket Hollow Earths, dimensions, whatever you want to call them. Clearly, they're giving it a different name than Hollow Earth. This is Axis Mundi, so it's a little different than probably where Kong was with Monarch in Godzilla vs. Kong. So I don't know. It's gonna be an insane finale. I think we're obviously, based off the picture with the Ion Dragon, we're about to get a good battle with the G-Man himself. So I'm excited. Do any of you guys have any other crazy theories before we start to wrap up the show tonight?
No, I just was thinking about, as somebody who does love Godzilla versus Kong, you know, from what I remember, that vehicle that Apex uses to get fully into the Hollow Earth, you know, it basically kind of seems all dark and there's like a cream and a color of light. So when we're seeing Shaw's perspective in Operation Hourglass, I don't think they went deep enough to go into Hollow Earth. So we're almost dealing with like a layer, right? Like almost thinking like an outer layer of the Axis Mundi that they're in, because you see that shot of Shaw when he wakes up in the forest that is exactly like the forest that older Shaw and Korra or May are escaping the power surges from. So in a way, it's kind of like a parallel maybe type of. So who's to say even that Kate and Shaw and May are in the same realm, or because there's a different color palette, you know? So maybe they're in like they're separated in different layers, and it's going to be a fight to get all back together. So I don't know. I'm just along for the ride. I did talk about my theory. Maybe I'm hoping that Kiko comes back and tries to take over Monarch from Serizawa. Maybe Serizawa plays into it, but I do like Orkin Beans' theory of G-Man being the unexpected ally.
And how awesome would it be if another Monarch monster slips it in right at the end, for another theory and get it confirmed one more time in the show, man? Like, I gotta hope. He's right on that.
Yeah, the HEAV. Yep, the vehicle that they use in Godzilla versus Kong.
Sure. What are people saying in the poll? Are you going to close that?
Yep, I did just close the poll for the general thoughts on episode 9, Axis Mundi of Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. Options were best episode yet, good, meh, worst episode yet. And out of 30 votes, 3% worst episode yet. So one person said worst, one person said meh, another 40% said good, and it looks like the resounding is saying the best episode yet. So even over, what was it, Corey? Episode, is it 3 or 6 with Godzilla? It was whichever one with Godzilla in it that people were like,
yeah.
Probably Batman. Wasn't Batman in here a second ago?
Yeah.
And it could have been Batman who voted it worse just to troll. But it's no worries. It's no worries if you did vote it worst episode. We respect all opinions in here. So
if you did say worst episode, definitely put in the comments why. Just because we'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd like to hear different opinions from our own. I thought it was a very good episode. To me, the last 2 episodes have put the show back on track from some of the themes that we weren't too crazy about. And I feel like they're focusing on the things that we really do want to see in this show. And I can only imagine how crazy episode 10 is going to be.
Yeah.
But what would you guys score it out of curiosity? What would be Josh's score for episode 9?
I will go definitely just because my favorite character, Ibiko, came in. I think this will be my highest score yet of the season of 9.6 for me.
Nice.
Wow.
Man.
Okay.
So wow, that's a great score. It's a great score. So I rate shows, as you guys all know, I rate shows differently. I'm usually, I can get up a lot higher than I normally give it for movies because I kind of judge, each section little by little, and then the overall picture of things. So it's kind of a different rating. So I'm okay if scores get a little high or get a little low. And obviously, like Trey has said numerous times, we usually watch them at the end, and we sometimes adjust our scores if it fits in overall in the episode. One of the biggest things I like to do too is I try to think, like, what was I missing in this episode? What more did I need out of this episode? And obviously, like the first thing that always comes to your head is like, oh yeah, you want more kaiji or tie-ins and different things like that. But we got some in this one. We didn't get the G-Man himself, but we got some. But that said, there was enough of a sci-fi show element where we had some, like, it got me, like the whole beginning portion of the theories had me super excited because I was totally into the space age and the shuttles and going over to NASA when we lived in Florida and being in the Young Astronauts Club in school. So I was like digging, like just eating up everything about the first episode. The overall tons of theories confirmed by the Monarch Monsters made this episode super fun for me as well. I can't find a complaint in this episode, personally. And I know that's a little bit different from people like, Trey, because he knows the Godzilla or a whole lot better than I do. I really, 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 really enjoyed this episode. So I'm going to give it a 9.9.
Wow, almost perfect.
A 9.9?
Yeah, I probably could say 10, but it didn't bother me that Godzilla wasn't in this one. Like it was that good. Like it was damn near perfection, in my opinion. I loved the going back and forth with Shaw and everything like that. This was a very Shaw-driven episode, and I love Shaw. So like it worked really well. Like Shaw was, the case expert, and then we got our girl back. So like there was a lot of awesome elements to this that the characters drove this story. And for the first time, we didn't really we needed the kaijus, but like we didn't need they didn't have to be a main focus with how well character driven this story was.
They definitely are a looming threat still, right? They're still there. The Iron Dragon, just the couple of shots we got him, they're setting him up to be the overlapping season 1 big bad,
And Corey, the reason why it's so high is because Kate was barely in it. That's why you really wrote it.
Kate has, maybe a little bit, but because I do love Kentaro and I do love his mom and I do love Shaw so much, and I do love May. Hopefully that's not the case, but Kate flip-flopped on me and has annoyed me, but after last episode, she has gotten a little bit better, but this was such a Shaw-driven episode. And as well as we got to see Hiroshi more, a whole lot more in this episode, which was fantastic as well, because we also got Hiroshi's story and understanding, we got so many answers to why Hiroshi is the way he is, that, with our theories confirmed, the kind of a better understanding of why people are acting the way they are. But it, kind of like I mentioned earlier too, Josh, that Kate, and May being down there still, and who knows how long they're going to actually be down there for, so that when they return, I'm okay with them being together, now. So like if Kentaro's a super old guy, it doesn't make it as weird, thankfully. So in my head, so I'm not necessarily completely opposed to that anymore either. So like it was a damn good episode, in my opinion. And I know I'm probably a pretty crazy high score compared to. I'm curious where Trey is or where the chat is. And
so I think my highest score they've given so far is a 9.4 for the show. I'm going to give this one. I thought it was very good. Definitely one of the better episodes for sure this season. I think he made it tight with the first place episode. I think that was episode 3 for me or something like that. So I'm going to give it a 9.4. And the only reason why I didn't give it a masterpiece 9.5 score yet is because I need to see how they answer some of these burning questions I have in the next episode. Like some of it could be a letdown, or some of it could really amplify how awesome this episode is. That I go yep, that one, put that 9.5 on it. To me, there's just a little bit and like I said, it's one of those things where scientifically, I spent hours researching this entire episode and kind of the science to it, the fiction of it, the timeline of it. And there are some continuity issues, but they could be answered if they took the time to do it. So if they don't do it, then I kind of go, why? Why did you make the decisions? Or did you just not pay attention enough as you were writing the show? So that's where I nick it a few points, because right now, I don't know how they're going to answer some of those questions, especially in 44 minutes in this finale episode. Good God, it's going to be action-packed, intense. I just don't know where this thing's going. But season 2, just give it to me, please. I don't want it to end. I don't want it to. I wish it was 15 episodes. No, 20. Give me 20. But what is the rest of the chat saying, Corey?
Let's see here. So the chat is saying, let me get to my starred ones. All right. Oracle's Clock Tower gave it a 9.4, a 9.3 from Red Hood Outlaw, 9.5 from Beyond the Night. Orc and Beans gave it a 9.5.
Okay.
9.2 from The Butler, 9.4 from The Batman Who Laughs, a 9.1 from Joker's Wild, 9.6 from Carrie Kelly, 9.7 out of 10 from 9 Lives in Hell here, 9.5 from Trevor H, TJ gave it a 9.5 out of 10 for the episode. My average has finally peaked to 9.0 out of 10 for TJ. 9.2 from King Donkey Kong. A 9.4 from Kaiji Crazy Craig Rowland. He says 9.4 for me. Wayne Enterprise says we were missing Godzilla, so a 9.3. Red Robin gave it a 9. Bat Fanatic gave it a 9.5. Hashtag Restore the Snyderverse guy gave it a 9.3. Dean Classified Monarch Eyes Only gave it a 9.6. Atomic Kaiji 1954 Akia Lee gave it a 9.3. People were like, damn, wow, Super Broke Coin for giving a super high score. Josh brings up a good point, so he raised up his 9.5. And I hear you, buddy. I still hear you, Red Hello. Like, I stood up
I was like, what is he talking about? Like, Josh brought up a good point. Which one? He brought up many good points.
Right.
There's a lot of people who don't like Kate, and it's fair. Like, sometimes characters just don't work for you, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see where she ends up in this next one. And like Corey, I think what we're gonna do, guys, just to give you kind of an idea. Our watch party next Thursday is going to be a little later than normal. I know we've been doing it 9:45 p.m. It's going to be later just because of when people can join us. So I apologize if that messes up anyone's schedule. But Replay Crew, you could always check it out. But we're going to do our episode 10 breakdown, and it will be focused on episode 10, just like how we're doing it now. Normally, Corey and I do like a whole season overview on our finale breakdown, but I think episode 10 is going to leave us a lot to discuss, So rather than it being a 4-hour show, we're going to do a season overview show, hopefully with a whole big Monarch Stars panel, so that we can really break it down. And also, Corey and I will adjust our scores from the entire season to see how certain episodes worked with us, if not. Killmonger gave it a 9.5. My man, that's pretty good. 9.5. I like it. 9.5. He loved it. Killmonger, what was your favorite part of the episode? Let us know. I'm curious. But as we start to wrap up today's show, it's great to hear that it sounds like everyone for the most part was above a 9. I would have been curious, Javon. I don't know if you're still watching. I know you had certain issues with the time travel, kind of tweaking the adjustments.
I was really hoping to see his score.
Yeah, if you're still on, Javon, I would love to hear your score. And it'd be okay if you said 2-0 or like something lower.
I wouldn't care if he said a -10.
Yeah, I just want to hear your thoughts. But 9.5, that's pretty good. Killmonger, it's great to see you, brother. My boy Josh, I know you have an event going on, so hopefully we're not keeping you. Wait.
It's fine. He actually just messaged me, and so he's like, they're just getting started. So no worries.
Dude, I'm so sorry, guys. Josh has a thing to go to tonight, so please thank him in the chat. He is absolutely phenomenal for hanging out with us. But Josh, do you have anything going on your channel? I know you did some watch parties recently,
and I actually do have something to plug for the first time in a while. Tomorrow, I will be doing a Rebel Moon spoiler. I know that I got some compliments on this shirt. This shirt is actually AFSP funded campaign fundraiser. I'm not sure if it's still available, but it was on Ink2the-People. It was on Ink2the-People.com from Danger Hayden. And so he's also got a Papa Snyder with that pose from the Brazil Comic-Con XP shirt. But nice. Yeah, so on my channel tomorrow, I will be doing a Rebel Moon spoiler review with a special guest. An actual actor from Rebel Moon will be joining me, and I will be doing a pre-interview with that individual. I will be announcing it on Twitter X probably very soon, right after the stream, so stay tuned. I don't normally like to say I'm a YouTuber. I know the Bat Channel and Super Bowl Corey and everyone here have encouraged me, so I guess that got into my mind back in 2023, and now in 2024, here I am. So I go be doing a spoiler review on my channel tomorrow, and I think that's 2 p.m. Pacific time. So that would be 5 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Central. So yeah, go check that out if you're interested. And if you've seen Rebel Moon, there will be full spoilers. So make sure you watch Rebel Moon on Netflix before you join in for that. But Replay Crew, we would love to have you.
Sweet dude.
That's awesome, man.
You got me like I got like goosebumps just listening. I'm like, who's it gonna be?
After y'all's full circle stream, which was amazing, and I loved watching y'all's countdown New Year's Eve stream. Thank y'all for doing that. That was fun for me to watch. I couldn't watch it live, but I watched replay crew. I got a lot of insights. I was like, oh, I agree with that. I agree with that. I like these guys. Stream them more. But yeah, it's been a joy. So thank you for this community for being so awesome. You guys always bring great conversations, and shout out to y'all for being right. We've all been right in some way.
We're rocking it.
We are all
Monarch Monsters are tearing it up.
Yeah, well, guys, I can't wait to hear what this is about tomorrow for your Rebel Moon spoiler review with a special guest from the movie itself. The biggest film on Netflix right now, Rebel Moon. Josh is going to have an actor on there. They're like, yes.
Except in Canada.
Something Canada? Oh, I see what you're saying.
Canada?
Something. Corey's trying to break. He's trying to get hints from me, Josh. He's trying to like spoil it. Give us a hint.
There's a top
movie yourself, Josh. This is your moment, man. And I'm so happy, guys. If you have not subscribed to our boy Josh, what are you doing? Go do it. Just go subscribe to Josh, because not only has he been doing cool shows before, but tomorrow he's going to have an insane show, and I can't wait, dude. As a fan myself, I'm just so happy for you. Congrats for this moment, and just enjoy it, brother. This is going to be huge for your channel, and whoa, I'm excited. I'm excited. The guys, oh, man.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, you're a great voice of the community, and your shows are fantastic. Your watch parties are fantastic. Your insights fantastic, and yeah, I always love to hear what you have to say about just anything. So I'm excited for you, man. That's going to be an awesome show for you, brother.
Thanks. I'm excited for it, and for you guys to just have another opportunity to voice your thoughts on art. So thank y'all for having a platform, because it has inspired me to do this thing.
Awesome, dude. That's so cool to hear. I love these moments, guys. It's what it's all about, building the community. So, Battalion, you know what to do. Smash that like, subscribe to our boy Josh, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a stream, and follow him on Twitter if you haven't, because I'm going to be like refreshing my Twitter every minute after this show, just waiting to see who the big guest is. But I'm excited. Thank you so much for hanging out for our Monarch Monstars show today, talking about episode 9 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, only on Apple TV. Big watch party coming with the season finale this Thursday. Be on the lookout for our watch party so you can hit that notification. Guys, I am your host, Trey, with a super bro, Corey. And don't forget to tune in weekly with our boy Josh doing his show tomorrow. Same bat time.
Same bat channel.
And now, a special message for our sponsors, reminding you to be safe in a world surrounded with Titans. Have a great night, guys. See you later.
Bye.
And now a special message brought to you by the Titan Preparedness Plan.
With the recent spike in Titan sightings circulating on social media, proactive preparation for a Titan emergence event is crucial. A single towering force of nature has the potential to forever alter the lives of millions. It is our mission to help you prepare for that force. The Titan Preparedness Plan is your guide to staying safe in the face of monsters. These are the 3 steps you need to know. 1. Know before you go. Identify the location of your nearest Titan shelter and practice navigating a Titan evacuation route with your family on a weekly basis. 2. Run and take cover. In the case of a Titan emergence, calmly sprint to the nearest Titan shelter. If your designated shelter is inaccessible or at capacity, seek the basement or lowest floor of a nearby building. 3. Stay informed. Follow any further instruction from local authorities and stay informed using your mobile device, television, or radio. We can't stop a Titan emergence, but we can safeguard our lives. Join us in building a safer, more resilient community. We are here to protect you.